Ayer was a student of Gilbert Ryle's at the University of Oxford. Ryle we've already met when we talked about self-knowledge and Sarah Paul's paper. It is not, Ayer says, in Freedom and Necessity, causality or determinism that freedom is to be contrasted with, but constraint. I shall try to show that from the fact that my action is causally determined, it does not necessarily follow that I am constrained to do it. And this is equivalent to saying that it does not necessarily follow that I am not free. So what's an example of a constraint, something that takes away one's freedom? Ayer gives the case of the kleptomaniac, someone who is compelled to go around pinching things. A kleptomaniac is not a free agent in respect of his stealing because he does not go through any process of deciding whether or not to steal. Or rather, if he does go through such a process, it is irrelevant to his behavior. Whatever he resolved to do, he would steal all the same. And it is this that distinguishes him from the ordinary thief. It's an interesting question what Ayer would say about the case of Aaron Hernandez, the Patriots player with brain damage who was convicted for murder. So on page 623, he is talking about causation and the sense in which causes necessitate. And he says, suppose, for example, that a psychoanalyst is able to account for some aspect of my behavior by referring it to some lesion, brain damage, perhaps, that I suffered in my childhood. And then he suggests that in this case, it's true that my behavior is capable of being explained in the sense that it can be subsumed under some natural law, but it does not follow that I'm acting under some constraint. This is related to one of the notes and questions, number 2 in the notes and questions on page 625, which I think it would be good to think about. Ayer tries to give some sufficient conditions for someone to act freely. There are 3 of them, and if they all obtain, Ayer claims the person did act freely. To say that I could have acted otherwise is to say, 1, that I should have acted otherwise if I had so chosen, 2, that my action was voluntary in the sense in which the actions, say, of the kleptomaniac are not, question mark hanging over Aaron Hernandez, and 3, that nobody compelled me to choose as I did. And, Ayer claims, when 1, 2, and 3 are fulfilled, I may be said to have acted freely. And Ayer thinks, reasonably enough, that these conditions are sometimes fulfilled. So that's not the controversial part of his theory. The controversial part is that conditions 1, 2, and 3 are jointly sufficient for someone to act freely. That might seem to exhaust the options. Either Ayer is right, and the fact that our actions have causes which occurred way before we were born, so causes over which we have no control, is of no threat to our free will and moral responsibility, or philosophers like Galen Strawson are right, and free will is an illusion, a chimera. We think we have free will, we feel we have free will, we feel we could go this way or that way freely. It's entirely up to us, and we're responsible if things turn out badly if we go this way rather than that way. But that's all a gigantic mistake. But in fact, there's a third option, and that's represented in the readings by the piece by Chisholm.